welcome to the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. My name is James Kendall, and I'm joined by my industry colleagues, David Warburton and Ian Storey. We all have a very special guest this week as well, Alex Pelosi-Buchanan, which we'll get into in a minute. Obviously, each week we go along how everyone's week's been. So let's start with you, David Warburton.
No way. Right, well, I'd never go first, so this is refreshing. And if my audio's not
Bearing in mind, mate, you've got 20 minutes, and we know you like to talk, so keep it short.
Yeah. And apologies if my audio's not great this week.
Never is.
I'm on the road. No, that's not true. It's normally Ian's that lets the side down. So, and he types in the background if anyone's picked that up. But I'm on the road, so we'll do our best. But yeah, actually, a really good week. We'd actually, I know JK, you're having an absolute stonker of a month. We'd had a bit of a slower start on sales, but they've really started to motor on through now, which is really great news. We tied up, I think, 5 deals in the last week, which is really good. And I'm also literally just got off the phone before I jumped on the podcast. I'm hoping to tie up a 1.3 million deal this morning. I've got a couple going through at like 650s and 600s. So like we always talk about where the gold is. And I've picked up some really, really amazing instructions and valuations. I mean, I was speaking to you guys on the text last night. I had 2 not on the market letter valuations come through in like 30 minutes, and they're both absolute corkers. I think I sent you shots of each of them. So it feels for me like the first sort of week or 2 back was it was good and there was activity, but it was taking a while for it to come through. But we seem to be really motoring on now. So overall, lads, yeah, it's been a nice week for me. What about you, Ian?
Good, yeah, good again. I've had 2 absolute beauties of listings, one at 1.25, one at 2.2, both originally from our NOM letters, both. One in particular has been a really long burn. I went to see him 3 years ago, kept in touch with him. He's moving to Australia, and he always said he'd use us, and he is doing now. That came off one of our not on the market letters. And then another one, absolute belter today. I'll send you some photos, lads, didn't I? On a lake, 2.2. It's an absolute brilliant instruction, and it just proves even further that clients at that level will pay the right fee to you at the higher end. So I'm really, really, really pleased with that listing. Phil's taken a cracker at 600 that I'm really proud of him on, because it went on at 675 with a local agent that lists loads of stuff, and then they lose loads of it because it's overpriced and poor service and stuff. And Phil went to it last year. Phil could easily have said 650 and got it on the day, but he didn't. He said 600 because that's what the market data was showing. He didn't get it on the day, and it's taken him about 2 months to get it, but he's got it at offers over 600 because he's educated them and the process.
Well done.
So I'm really proud of him there. So that's a really good listing for Phil. You know, at 2% again. And then sales agreed, good. I agreed a corker last weekend, put it on at 1.5, sold it for 1.575 3 days later. And then I've got a focus now on our onward negotiation service. So I'm really pushing that now with every client. So this guy that we've sold the one at 1.575 for is buying on at about 2. And he's asked me to negotiate the onward purchase for that as well. So I'm on with that today. And then another couple of other good little sort of gold dust sales, one at 5, one at 7. So on the whole, good. Pipeline is really good. And we haven't had any fallers so far. We've got a bit of a complicated one where it's got like 3 titles and they're trying to do an adverse possession on a bit that isn't registered. And that's proving to be a bit of a nightmare. There's an overage on the land as well. So that's a bit of a tricky one, trying to get that through.
And they want to get it through for stamp duty.
And they want it through by the end of March. And the sellers are really high maintenance. So me and Michelle were sort of double teaming them last night on a call, telling them what they needed to do, what they needed to not do to try and get it through. But no, on the whole, really good, getting great results off our letters. What about you, JK?
Yeah, do you know what? I said to you, lads, the other day, we were having a stonking month. We had a really slow start for about 10 days. And not really a lot was happening. And all of a sudden, it really started to pick up. So we should land, and we've confirmed 18 of them, but we should land by tomorrow on 20 sales. Obviously, average fee, 10 grand. I mean, if I could do that every month, Jesus.
Amazing.
So it's been a really good month. Just talk about winning stuff back. We've just won one back that's coming on tomorrow. Chloe went out to talk about keeping in touch with people. Went out to 18 months ago. It went on at 700. She said 600, and it's gone on at 700. Sat on the market for 18 months. She slowly kept in touch, and the lady literally texted her 3 days ago and said, "We're not going anywhere. We need to move. Can you come put my house on the market at 600,000?" Like you said,
Right.
And it was like, bosh, it's gonna sell. Listings pretty good, to be fair. We've still got quite a few in photography. There's nothing that's super groundbreaking. There's a few at sort of 375. There's a few at 600. Nice kind of mid market stuff. I know that they'll just go in a couple of weeks. I've got one that is coming on at 1.25 river frontage. Really, really nice house. Really, really nice guy actually as well. Another cottage just under $1 million. A few bits and pieces happening in the background, which is nice. Overall, if I could do what I've done this month every month, then I'd probably do this from a yacht somewhere. But obviously we know that it doesn't happen. Oh, and we just got all of our market updates went out late this month as well. We ideally wanted to get them before Christmas, but just so busy with completions and getting everything through at the back end of the year, they slipped into Jan. So we've just got our 10,000 market updates out now. So hopefully the phone will start to ring and we will start to get some more vowels in. But we booked in a last check the other day. I'll just have a quick check now. But this for a stat for us is absolutely incredible. For a month, for us to book 46 valuations in a month, it's just incredible. When you think of the size of our office, there'll be people that listen to this that have got a 3-branch network, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, we do that every month." But we're a single office, so to do book 46 vowels in a month is pretty impressive numbers.
We're the same, JK. We had a bit of a slower start, and like when you two came back and you were telling me how many you'd booked in, I was kind of like, bloody hell, we're way behind. But we're now at I booked 30 and 31 last night, which for me, that is perfect for me. That is where I want to be. It's just
Happy
the right
days.
number. More than that, it just becomes a point where you can't cope. And just going back a couple of steps, just one thing that we've been really concentrating on recently. I don't know whether you guys do this already, but what I want to try and do now is really make the team aware of what fees are available on the market, because obviously we always look at the pipeline.
As in stock available, pipeline of available
stock available, what it means to us in pounds and pence as well. Because sometimes I think you can concentrate, you're always looking for the new instructions, and you have to, of course, and you've got to have a regular lead gen strategy. You've got to have that. But, your gold is there as well in your on-market stock, and you've got to work that stock. And I know we talk about keeping in touch with clients as much as possible. I know Ian's got his weekly calls. That's really important. But sometimes if things are a little bit slower, you've just got to really, really work your stock. And we've secured some amazing reductions in the last sort of week or two. And more often than not, again, like we've talked about, at the higher end of the market, when you're doing data valuations, you'll tend to get your vendor wanting to try at a higher level. Of course you do. If you're going through the data and it's kind of like, well, the pound per square foot suggests we're at X. What were your thoughts? They'll usually stick a 50 grand on it anyway, because, as we always say, that's the subjective part. And if you give it a go for a certain amount of time and it's not working, they need to reduce. And we've had some really corking reductions. And what it does, it gives you leverage as well, I find, with other clients. So there's 3 houses that we've got in particular. There's one that's reduced from sort of late 7s. She's now at offers over 7, and we're getting offers at around like 7:30, which is where I thought it would be right from day one. Anyway, I've had another one that was on with a very well-known high agent called Fine and Country. I wasn't going to say anything, but it was Fine and Country.
What does it rhyme with?
Bine and Buntry. It went on the market.
Countrywide?
So it went on the market at 1.45 million, and it had been on for a year with one viewing. And when I went out to see her, I said, "I'm really sorry, Sharon, but it's worth about 800 grand, 800 to 900 grand." And she actually got it, but she said, "Look, that's a massive drop. Let's do $1 million." We did $1 million, and she had one viewing, eventually we've had a conversation 2 months later. She said, "Look, what do we need to do to get it sold?" Offers over 850. We've done it, and she's got a load of interest in that. So there's I did another one yesterday, 800 to 750. So it's good because you then speak to somebody else, and they're also good test cases. We've just reduced this one from X to X, and it's likely that will have the desired impact on yours as well moving forward. It'll give you the impetus to go on and get a sale early doors. So I just think you need to really work your existing stock. So that would be a big message for me if you're not doing. But making sure that everybody's aware of what you've got on the market in fees, etc.
Cool. Well, Alex, introduce yourself and tell us how your week's been, and we'll get into it, mate.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. Obviously, I haven't listened to the podcast for a while. It's always honoured to be asked to be a guest. And
you've got to say that.
Yeah, standard protocol. But no, so my name's Alex Pelosi-Buchanan. I'm a self-employed agent with eXp in South Wales. Went out self-employed 15, 16 months ago now, coming on, I think. So it's been mental. I can't believe how quickly the time's gone. And obviously, taking that big kind of step out of an employed role into a self-employed and becoming a business owner, it's been the roller coaster, which I'm sure, all three of you, well, Dave's gone, but all three of you are obviously have been through yourselves as well. And it's, but yeah, I've loved every second of it, though. It's been brilliant, and but like I said, it does come with the rough and the smooth. And by the sounds of it, you guys have had absolutely stonking months and stonking weeks. I've had a bit of a slower start to January in terms of sales, but I had quite a big chunk of completions in the run to Christmas, and this month again I've completed on I think about 60,000. Well, hoping to go between 50,000 and 60,000 pounds worth,
nice.
Which has been a big chunk. But suddenly my pipeline's dramatically dropped. But obviously it was needed.
Yeah.
So it obviously that's obviously now the game, and a bit like you all said about existing clients. I've got a lot on the market for obviously being on my own. I think I'm up to something like 26, 27 on the market. I'm listing another 5 or 6 in the next week, and I think I've done like 20. I think I had 20 appraisals in January, which I wasn't expecting to have. Wow. I just feel I've been busier there than I was expecting to be. I really thought that January I'd have more time to kind of focus on other things, as you do, but it hasn't happened. But lots of good conversations, instructions. Like I said, and I deal with kind of the a lot of mass market as well, which has been like sort of, it's been quite nice actually and humbling that I get asked out to small 2-bedroom terraces, and I'm also getting asked out to much bigger properties that I'm having some conversations with, which was very much the premise of the brand when I started it. I wanted to try and offer good marketing to all homes, and it's nice to get that feedback from the public that people say we like that you do good marketing for all your properties, not just the big ones.
Yeah,
I do the videos, and there's still, even the video is still really in depth, and taken obviously over time, obviously a lot of inspiration from people like Ian, and and actually it doesn't matter whether it's a little 2-bedroom terrace, you can still tell the story of the area and what it's like to live in the house, and what it's been like for the owners to live in that property, how it was a great first purchase for them, and it's nice that then that resonates with the people watching the videos, so even getting feedback from first time buyers about how great the marketing is, because as I say, your buyer today is your seller tomorrow, so I'm hoping that even if they didn't buy through me, they'll remember that Alex was always the one who did those really cool videos. I've actually had one that they only bought it just when I started, and I've been out to see them, and they've just had a baby, so they want to move, and they called me out because they just follow me on Facebook, and they like when they were looking last time when I first met them. They'd only just started looking in the area. They came back to say, look, we loved you when we met you. We loved you when we see your videos. We just keep seeing your videos. And I was the only agent through the door. And that's the beauty of it. I haven't asked anybody else, and like I say, it's a 3-bedroom end of terrace. But hey, I'll sell it, and it's coming on at the right price, and they kind of trusted my guidance, and so it's nice actually to be able to. I've had days where I've literally gone from a 1-bedroom flat to going to look at a £1.5 million house, literally straight after each other. So, but I think I'm at that point now because I'm at, not say capacity, but certainly I'm having to make that decision now about what I do next. And I've finally started to get some help. I've got an assistant that's just come in, so that's quite exciting. So she's just started now this month, so that's again taken quite a bit of time. VA, so that's taken a lot of my time again this month. There's been lots of stresses on that. A bit like with Ian, I've got about 4 properties at the moment that have all got somewhere in the chain something to do with a title defect or covenants, which has been quite stressful. One of which I've got a chain of 2 properties that I'm involved with, and the one at the bottom we've just found out that there's a title defect on the driveway, which obviously the solicitors want sorted, and it's just like, can't we just get an indemnity policy, please? Like, this has been going on for 4 or 5 months. Why are you now?
Give me my money.
And it's there's been a few tricky ones that I've had to deal with this month. So it's been a little bit tough because, like I said, sales hasn't been great, but I've got a few kind of offers, or call them expression of interest, if we will, of people who said that they want to buy them. So we've kind of got offers floating around in the background. So I could get a call tomorrow to say that they've now got a buyer on their own, and away we go. So it's been a very interesting January, very different to the one I was expecting to have.
Well, you sound like you've been really busy, mate, and it's obviously it's refreshing to hear. We're obviously, this is the partner agent kind of mini series that we're doing, so we're going to cross-examine you a little bit, and obviously your eXp, which is one of the probably if not the biggest in the UK at the moment, partner agency. So it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective, because I think with being the biggest, I do think eXp does get hammered a little bit by different sources in terms of, they do this and they do that. And I think that's always going to be the way when it's such a big firm. Someone's always going to have something to say about you, especially when a lot of, leading figures within eXp are quite outspoken. You're always going to be in the firing line. I do think that, my personal opinion, it does, offer a lot to people in terms of if they want to make the leap to self-employed. It is one of the options that's there. Obviously it's working really well for you. One of the questions I had, and it's something Perry mentioned on his pod, and I don't think he's correct, and I'd just like to maybe get this out there. So be interesting to see how this actually works. So Perry said on his pod, I don't know if you listened to it, but he said something on when we were talking 2 weeks ago, that if you were doing £1 million worth of revenue, you'd have to give 30% of that away. So you'd give 300 grand away to like eXp, for example, in that scenario, and keep 700 for yourself. But I don't think that's true, is it? Because you guys have got something called capping, is that right?
Yes. So with eXp, the most they'll ever take from you in terms of a commission split will be £24,000. So if you did £100,000 worth of, if you did 100 grand in a year, then eXp will take £24,000. If you do £500,000 in a year, eXp will take £24,000. So they then, after each transaction, you get a flat fee of £250 per transaction, basically, which then reduces if you icon, which is like when you've done your cap and then 40 transactions, I think it goes down to like £125 per transaction. So for instance, I capped within 2 months of my second year. So I've had 10 months of earning 100% of the commission minus 250 quid. But I just had one now that just exchanged, which was a 12 grand fee. So
nice.
That's just, and I think that's the thing, is that when I used to work, when I was employed, and we get the exchange in, and then I'd see my little 5% of the 12 grand come in. And I know you're salaried and you've got money coming in, and obviously there's other perks of being employed, but it was a big kicker when you used to see those bigger sales come in. And even I can remember there was one I had at 1.5 million, and I think I got 1,200 quid commission. And it was just it was the sale from hell, and it was a lot of work and late nights calls from the owner, and of course it was all on me as the sales manager. And then when you see £1,200 in your bank 6 months later, whereas I sold one last year that was 1.75 million. Unfortunately, I hadn't capped at this point, but even after the cap, even after the split of the 70% was still 16 grand. So that landing in my account was just like, wow. I was just like, it blows your mind. And I think that's the thing, is that it's that all different models, some will have different splits, but I think for me, that was the attraction, was to be able to go out and think, I'm going to cap as quickly as possible. I want to do this because I want to earn that 100%. Obviously for that, like, so obviously eXp do provide a whole range. We get basically £150 a month, which is our desk rent, if you want to call it, our monthly subscription. But that covers all your Rightmove, your Zoopla, it covers your CRM, your AML software, Obviously, we've got Workplace, there's an entire marketing suite if you want to build flyers, and everything's in there for you to go and use. But I guess, obviously, that's where it's different, that there are other models out there that maybe do, 50-50 or whatever they do, but some will probably provide more lead generation for you. They will, and I looked at lots of options, and, some would say, well, look, we'll do your flyers, we'll pay for your boards, we'll pay for everything. All you've got to do is go out and list and sell houses. We'll do your sales progression for you. So for some people, that works really well, because some people literally just want to go out and sell houses, and they'll still make a lot of money and they'll still do really well from it. But for me, it was like wanting to be more entrepreneurial. I wanted to design my own boards. I wanted to have my name in lights. And I think that was a big thing for me, is that eXp very much, it's the agent's name, powered by eXp. It's not eXp with Alex Pelosi-Buchanan. It's my name up there, and I got to choose what kind of branding I wanted. I could run my business how I want. I'm not policed in terms of my patch. How many sales have I done this month? Because there's no territory, so there's no one kind of saying, hey, Al, you've got all these postcodes, but you've only listed one house this month. What are you doing? There's none of that. They're quite happy if people want to sell one house a year, you do it. So it's but for those who want to go out, and there's some amazing agents I've gotten to know really well, who I think one being Mark Buchanan, who I spent a lot of time with Mark in Miami, and he's a great agent again, and he sells in a market where the average house price is like 150 grand or something, and he just sells low. But he did, like I said, obviously when you're looking at in terms of fees, I won't say the exact figures, but we're talking a fair few six-figure numbers that he did. And, when you see agents like that who only 4 years ago were working for a certain colourful other self-employed model. Getting
what does it rhyme with, Alex? What's it rhyme with?
Turtle dicks.
Has he really come out of his shell now?
Yeah. But when only earning £500 a deal or whatever, and you think that, and it's just, and that's the thing, it's seeing people like that who've just come from such humble beginnings and still so humble, but out doing these amazing things and the businesses and what they've built in such a short time. That's what kind of made me think, going back to what you're saying about being better, I thought, if I was going to self-employed, why would I want to go with one of the biggest brokerages, not just in the UK, but in the world? We're approaching 100,000 agents across the world. Having the opportunity to go to Miami, and I've sat across the table having lunch with Glenn Sanford, the CEO, and it's mental to think that what billion-dollar company would you be able to go over to Miami and sit with the founder of the company, and he'll still talk to you about agency, like he was literally like he's still an agent, and I love that. So that was kind of, for me, I thought, well, if I was going to go self-employed, for me personally, why not be part of the biggest and try to be the best within those 600 and something agents.
So I've got a question for you then, Alex. So what other, you don't have to name the models, but you actually looked at, but when you looked at other models and then you considered about what you were doing, obviously it sounds like one of the biggest considerations for you was having control yourself in terms of what you can do. But what were the considerations when, from a perspective of someone that's jumped from employed, from a obviously sales, we obviously all knew you from before, from various different groups, etc. But what was it in your mind that made you go, right, eXp is the one for me?
I think, well, for a long while I'd followed agents like, Ben Moore was the one I reached out to, actually, when I'd made that kind of decision I was going to go self-employed. I reached out to Ben, and I'd followed Ben for many, many years. And Ben, actually, to be fair, was one of the ones, a bit like Ian, got me into doing video, because Ben was doing video back in 2018-19. He was doing, when he first went out, he was one of the first agents to join in 2019, and I'd always followed him and loved the lifestyle marketing, and obviously, he felt like the natural person I'd want to reach out to, because I kind of align with him on a lot of things. And I think that I was looking around at other models, and I think one of the biggest things was that I spoke to another model to get some bit of insight, and they were saying it's the brand that will get you through the door. It's not the agent. And I was like, nope. I said, because no one knows who you are around here. No one knows that brand. If I suddenly put a board up outside a house, they'd be like, who the hell's that? They wouldn't say, oh my God, it's one of them, because they wouldn't know. I think sometimes we can feel that people will know who our brands are outside of our areas, and unless you've already got that presence through, if it's like a long-established brand that you've joined that are already operating in that area, then people might already know, oh yeah, we've seen some of those around. But if you're starting from scratch, and I thought, well, if I'm starting from scratch, I don't want to go in and build someone else's brand. I want to build my own. This is me. It's my personal brand. It's me that people are selling a house with. So that was a big thing for me, is that I could really push that as much as possible. I wasn't having to say that, it was the brand with Alex on my social media and all that. So that was something for me, which I felt was quite important. And I think, again, I was looking at things like territories, and I'd worked across all of Monmouthshire. And, there were some others that were like, you can have 3 postcode areas. I was like, well, literally within 10 minutes of my house, there's like 5 or 6 different postcode areas I could sell in. They said, oh, no, you could only have 3. I'm like, yeah, but I know people in all those areas. If I drive 10 minutes that way, it's one postcode. If I drive 10 minutes that way, it's one postcode. And I said, I've been selling houses all around Monmouthshire and all around kind of, parts of Wales for years. So again, that was something for me that, again, because of that, my first listing was back in the town I used to work in. And then I stupidly took on a couple of ones that I probably shouldn't have done, that were really far away, like they were up in blooming, up in the valleys, which, but at the time I was growing the business and someone said, oh, I've recommended to a friend. So I was like, well, I need the listing, so I'll take it. But I ended up sat in traffic on blooming roadworks trying to get back from one viewing, which, ended up, in hindsight, probably shouldn't have done it. But at the time, hey, I was trying to build a business, and I thought I can't be turning a business away at this point. And, so for me, it was having that autonomy to be able to choose where I act and how I acted. And that's the thing. They're agents, as I said, within eXp, some of which will just sell the occasional house, or if their friends say, you never see or hear of them. They're not on social media. They're not, but there were agents there who their friends will say, oh, would you sell a house for us? They can just turn it back on again. They still pay their 150 quid a month, but if they just want to sell one house a year, that's absolutely fine. And that for me as well, I thought, if I was to change my business, and I haven't got kids now, but what if I did have children, having the kind of autonomy to be able to say, hey, I need to kind of dial things down a bit, with actually someone saying, well, you can't dial it down because, you've got those areas, you have to be working those areas. I just felt, is it really your business if someone's telling you how many letters you should be sending and how many valuations have you booked this month? And is that, and I just thought that isn't my business if someone's having to police that. So that was a big thing for me. And like I said, it was just like I said, wanting to be part of something big, thinking and seeing the way it's going. Obviously, it's grown in the way it has grown. If you consider it was only 5 years ago, we started with 0 agents, and now it's approaching 700, and that seems to be growing more and more every year. And I think it's kind of been exciting to be part of that, and obviously got to go to Lisbon as well last year, which was really cool. So like I said, just being able to do stuff like that, and it's my job. Like I said, just, obviously the benefit of doing it through the business. I went to Miami through the business, and that was just like mind blowing to me. I was just like, I can't believe that I'm doing this. And it's all, or most of it's on the business.
So I've got a question for you then. So why did you go down self-employed, and why did you not just set up Pelosi-Buchanan Estate Agents Limited?
I would say for years, I've always thought about having my own agency. And I think the biggest thing for me, and I think which is the biggest barrier for a lot of people doing it, is setup cost. Because if you want to go and open a high street office and you say, right, I'm going to go down the really traditional mode, I'm going to find an office space and we're going to open it up. From day one, you're having to put your hand in your pocket for tens of thousands of pounds just to kind of get out there, just to start. And, I didn't have that money. I had a little bit of money, but not that amount of money. And of course, if you open an office, as you guys know, if you're planning to be out all the time, you need someone in that office. So from day one, you're having to hire someone. So you're already responsible for someone, and they're obviously paying them. And, when I always looked at the numbers, and obviously having worked in an office setup where we had 4 branches, I knew what we were spending every month and what we were having to pay and all of that. And I guess I just thought it's going to be impossible. I could have gone and got a business loan or something. And I think for me, it was just that literally from day one, knowing that I can just start and I could choose. I mean, I personally went for gold and was doing like professional videos, and I was getting professional photographers. And so I was spending quite a bit on marketing, and the first couple of properties I didn't charge anything, but then as they went on, I started saying, it's £250 plus VAT. Not VAT at the time because I wasn't VAT registered, but it was £250, and that kind of helped things. So, but I was able to do that, and eXp don't take anything in terms of marketing costs, so they weren't taking any of that 250. So again, that kind of helped me get off the ground a bit more. And I suppose I could have just gone out and just done pictures on my phone. And a lot of agents do, and like I said, there's a lot of eXp agents have done that, and they've done really well. And they do pictures on the phone, and they do some really great videos. With your phone these days, you can create some quite cool content just with your phone. You don't need to have a professional videographer or photographer in any means. But for me, I knew what I wanted the kind of homes I wanted to attract, and I wanted to attract nice homes and people who like nice marketing. And I looked at what my competitors were doing, and I just thought I've just got to do it better because I'm the new kid on the block. I can't just come in and start taking rubbish photos because I'm not going to get asked out to things. Where very quickly people suddenly established me as, if you want to be your property marketed well, you got to get Alex. And that was within the space of a couple of months. All of a sudden, people were saying, "You've been recommended to us," and I said, "Oh, how come?" "Oh, well, yeah, someone said about your videos and we've watched them and we thought it was brilliant. We think that's just what we need for our house." And there's a really interesting story, which I know that I kind of shared with both of you, which was that £1.75 million house that I listed and sold. We were discussing video and we were going through marketing. I said, "Oh, what was it that kind of attracted you to having me out?" And they said, "Well, we've seen your marketing. And actually our friend in Cheshire had sent us some videos of an agent that he was dealing with up there. And it just so happened it was Mr. Storey." And I was like, "Oh, Ian." And he said, "Yes, that's him." And I said, "Yeah." I said, I actually know Ian." And he said, "Well, that's, so that goes to show the power of video and how that has kind of, it set the bar for them, because they tried to sell in the past with more traditional, a big national luxury company and a local firm, and that didn't work out. And they felt, if we're going to go for it for a third time, we need to find someone that we feel can convey that lifestyle." So obviously with them seeing, and their friends saying, "Oh, you want to check this guy out?" And seeing that and say, "That's what we need." And then seeing what I was doing and thinking, well, that's what he's doing. Again, they hadn't had anybody else out to give them another opinion. It was just like, look, I said to them, "This is what I can do." They said, "That's what we're looking for." And we went with it and it sold. So I think that, so for me, it was like, again, having that option that I can decide how my business looks. I didn't have anybody else telling me how I had to do it. It was just like, just you do what you want to do. And I just, like I said, I haven't looked back since.
So have you always been an estate agent then? What's your background? How did you get into it?
15 years. So cliche, like most people, just.
So since you were 10 then?
Just got, just went and asked for a job. Also, I think the first one I saw an advert, I think my mum actually saw a little, snippet in the paper saying estate agent wanted for a corporate. So did a short stint there, and then went to work for an independent firm for 8 years. And that was me just walking in and saying, "Any jobs going?" And it was like, yeah, funny enough, we need a negotiator. I was there for 8 years. And then I went to work for another company for 5 years, where, again, that was I think where I was introduced more to the world of good marketing. You won't mind mentioning the name Joe, Joe Parry. I've got a lot of time for Joe and the time that he put into, because I loved his branding and that he really cared about how properties looked. And, I had a big wake up call going and working there, because I'd come from a place where we were taking photos ourselves and doing the floor plans ourselves. And it was fine. And I learned how to use a camera, but to be fair, the manager before that was using a little point and shoot camera, and the photos were always wonky and dark and exposed. And it was only because I said, "Oh, I want to get a decent camera," and I did, and kind of tried to do better marketing. So it was so refreshing to go and work for a firm that were like, this is what we do. You're not taking photos. You're not doing any of that. We get people in to do that. And I was like, thank God for that. So, being able to work with photographers and, really caring about how the property looked, how the brochure looked, just like I said, just get, I say I can swear, but actually giving a shit about how you're presenting your clients' properties, and that was a big thing for me. So that's where I really started to get involved, and we had ties with Fine & Country as well. I'm going to say that, but again, spent a lot of time with a lot of those agents, and again, met some incredible agents that I still look up to now, who they just take it to another level. And again, a lot of those guys were doing video before COVID, and it was they were, again, and I kept looking at them and thinking, "God, all these people are doing videos," and it got me thinking that I want to do that. And that's where kind of slowly but surely kind of led into videos. Of course, then COVID kind of really forced everyone's hand to do some kind of video, and a lot of our competitors started doing similar videos to us. So that's where it was like, right, we need to get a professional videographer. So, to be fair to Joe, he said, let's do it, So, and I used to like that because I come from an environment where I'd made suggestions. We need to go on Facebook, and they'd be like, "Oh, we're not really up for that." Oh, I think we need to start doing better photos. No, we're not really doing that. And it just really felt that there was no progress. And they're pretty much doing the same what they were doing back then now. And that was 5-6 years ago now. And they're still doing the same kind of marketing. They do a bit of video now, but it's filmed themselves on a phone and a gimbal, and it's not particularly great. So, whereas now we're doing a lot of agents now have adopted video and are doing these big productions and very slick productions, and I think that's in the public's mind now. I think people are starting to expect it. It's almost like if you're not doing that, then you're kind of falling behind. And I think that's something for me. When I started the business, I wanted to make sure that I was going for gold and making sure that I was the one that got in there early in my town. And now that's my thing. And it's quite interesting. A lot more agents have started doing social media in my town. I've seen more doing video, professional videos, and actually being in the video, which is, but do you know what? I think it's great. If it raises the standard, brilliant. I think I'm quite happy to see other agents doing it because I think it needs to happen.
Yeah.
I don't want all of them to start doing it, but
I was going to say, I'd be quite happy if it was 2021 and no one was doing videos or photos.
Yeah, true.
It was amazing. No, but I know what you mean. Of course, I think it helps because I think ultimately, if agents improve their marketing, they have to improve their fee. Otherwise, they'll go out of business. If they keep adding all these layers on that we do, if they don't improve their fee and their service alongside it, they won't last. So I think ultimately, it'll drag fees up. I think it is doing already around us, definitely. Other agents are improving their marketing, but they're also, their fees are probably over 1% now on average, from what I see. But those who are trying to improve their marketing anyway, so I think it'll drag fees up. So just talk to us about, the bad side of self-employed agency. Yeah. So, so obviously there's loads of different models. There's loads of different self-employed agents. I think you're a particularly good example of a motivated, self-employed, type entrepreneurial person. But there must be a lot who aren't the same. And I always think, I look at a brand like eXp and I think, I can really see that someone like you could thrive there. But are there agents within that company who aren't as good as you and may drag that brand down a bit because of how they market and how they service and stuff? And do you feel that could affect you or not?
No, not necessarily. I think I think at the end of the day, I think all self-employed models, and you get some bad businesses starting up, even like opening on the high street. Yeah. Do it for I don't think it's exclusive to self-employed agents. You get people who think, I could run my own estate agency, and they go and open a branch and all that. And within 3 months, they've closed because they completely underestimated and I think, but there is an element.
They're not the same brand, though, are they? They're not the same brand, though.
No. But I think in terms of with people going self-employed, and when you're doing when there's the amount of agents that are becoming self-employed, and especially obviously with eXp the way it's growing, there's always going to be people in there that come on board and perhaps don't succeed. But I don't necessarily think that's because they weren't helped enough. I think it's more to do with the way I've always looked at it. And it's the same if you were going to start any business. If you're going to open a baker's, if you opened a baker's but didn't buy any flour, well, you can't sell any bread. So I think a lot of people perhaps come into self-employment, not just with the eXp, with other models, and I think kind of expect that suddenly that the listings are going to fall into their lap because they've been really used to working in an office and having leads thrown at them and their diary filled for them, and they think, I could do this for myself. I could earn, and they look at the money and think, I can earn this, and yes, there is a lot of stuff on social media about I earn this much and earn 250 grand a year and all that, but we know as business, and obviously what I've learned is that you might take 100 grand's worth of fees in a year, but you'll probably only still see 40 grand of that with all your tax and all the marketing and all the spend and everything. And so I think perhaps some people come into it for the wrong reasons and expect it to kind of be that within 6 months they're going to be earning 100 grand a year and they're going to be driving around in a new Porsche and they're going to be going on all these nice holidays, and they kind of think that's the lifestyle that it portrays.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying. My point is, do you not think that other agents within your brand could affect you if they're not performing as well as you are?
Yeah,
you think it's so do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, cool. I mean, obviously, don't worry. If another agent opened up in my town, to be fair, there is another eXp agent in my town already, and she's great. She's really good. She's a good agent. Okay. But yeah, I think if another agent under eXp suddenly launched in my town and was doing photos on a potato, and I think there would be an element if people were flicking through like Rightmove or Zoopla that they would see that, but that's beyond that. Everything else is kind of autonomous to that particular business, because obviously it's not just how your property's on Rightmove. It's like you said, your presence on social media. It's those. So I don't necessarily think it drags me down, because a lot of people don't even ask what eXp is. They don't even know. They're like, oh, what's the X on your board, or they don't, And I'm a big believer in, look, I think that buyers will find properties regardless. They don't see that it's on eXp or whoever. They just see the property. They want to fight. They want to whoever I need to speak to about this house. I don't care whether it's on with Prince Charles. I'll ring them. Don't know why I use Prince Charles here, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was
going to say he's not very available. He's never returning calls. He's terrible.
He's royally shit.
But the buyers don't really care. I think they see who it's on. They see the listing, they see the house. I want to speak to someone, and that's the thing. So it doesn't really come into it. And you do get the occasional person that says, and actually it works quite well. I've just had one now where that someone's viewed a property with me, and they said, "Oh, do you know Andrew in Epsom?" I'm like, "Oh, Andrew Byrne," and they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, he's selling our house. He's eXp too." So yes, there is a thing about terrible agents maybe doing it, but there's also some phenomenal agents as well. So I think it kind of balances out that I get some really good feedback about people that, oh, we're dealing with, and even if it's the other one in town, oh, we're dealing with Gemma. Oh, she's great. It's like brilliant. People kind of, and I was actually at one the other week, and they said how refreshing it was to kind of see agents like us. And so from the public's perception, at least where I am, it's not necessarily just about eXp. It's like they say, oh, there's quite a few of you self-employed, because one or two others popping up around. There's a few of you around, and I like it. The public's perception. They seem to prefer the personal approach. They're saying, "Oh, we're sick and tired of the traditional." And I know there are some really good traditional setups out there, but let's face it, there are a lot of. For every good one, there's about 10 bad ones, and a lot of people saying that, we're just sick to death of calling up and never getting a call back, or people turning up for the viewings and not knowing the house, and people are just tired of it. And like for someone to turn up and be there and like take them on a journey around the viewing, and it's the same person that they spoke to when they booked it, and the people just say it's just so much more personal. I think that's the biggest thing, and I think so.
It's about you, isn't it? It's about the person, isn't it? As always. I suppose.
But I think
I'm sorry, Alex. I was just going to ask then. Just talking about it being all about the person. What do you think? A sort of A-star self-employed agent needs to have. Like, what attributes? Who are they? What do they look like? There's a lot of them, but there are. I don't think there's that many like you. I think you're probably in the top 1% of self-employed agents. What do you think that person needs to be and have and look like?
I think what I've always said is that person, you have to be willing to do the things that others aren't willing to do. And, when I first started, I've still got it. I mean, my whiteboard that I've got by the side of me here, I've filled it and then taken a photo of it and put a thing on it. And then I've filled it again and taken a photo of that and stuck that to the whiteboard. But there's one bit I've always left up there, which was the phrase that I started when it was to be bigger and to be better and to be bolder. And it was just looking at it and thinking, I have to be the best version of myself. I have to, dare to be different and do things that others aren't willing to do, and always be that 1% better. And I think it's actually, it's not, I think there's a lot of agents, employed and self-employed, that spend a lot of time looking like they're selling houses, but they're not actually doing the work. They like to say, "Hey, I'm at this nice listing," or "Look at me, I'm out of this." And actually, they're not in the background. They're not putting the legwork in. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much work goes into that. It's the late nights. It's the putting the graft in. It's actually turning up every day and actually saying, "Right, let's get shit done." Basically, you've got to have that attitude of that. No one's going to do this for you. This is your business. So
I've got two questions for you, Alex. What's your setup now? And before you go into that, how did you sort of start up being self-employed? Like, what was, you obviously you mentioned a couple of like recommendations to kind of get you going originally, but like, what was your kind of strategy for lead gen? What did the first sort of 30, 60, 90 days look like? And then, what is your setup now? If you want to go on holiday or something happens, how does that all fit together now? So appreciate it's a long question.
No. It's a great question because, obviously that first year was like the growth stage. And I kind of look at it as like that was growing the business, and it was just literally 7 days a week, all day, every day, just flat out. And, part of me thought I could do that forever. I felt invincible. I was like, this is amazing, and then suddenly, but it was probably 9 months before I saw any real money coming in. So it got a bit hard. That it was getting to I launched in the kind of mid-September, and it was getting towards June, and I'd only had 2 completions. So that was hard. Kind of relaying back to Ian's question about the good, the bad, and the ugly and stuff. That was hard, waiting for the money to come through. And then they just literally came through very quickly. But
so can I just drill down on that quickly then? So anyone that's looking at going self-employed, set their expectations. How long is it before they're going to get their first paycheck?
Well, like I said, for me, I had a couple of tricky sales that took a lot longer because I launched in the mid-September, didn't have my first sale until December. Then I did have my first completion until April, and that was only like $3,000. So as you can imagine, that money came in and just went poof and just disappeared into nothingness. And then I had another.
So did you have? Sorry to kind of keep asking personal questions, but I want to ask the questions I guess that people want to know is just while you're on that. Did you have like a bank of money to like a pot to keep you going for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, well, I had some money that I had access to. We're not talking a lot of money. Some might think it's a lot of money, but I had that. But I think charging for marketing was very much key because that really kept at least the business side of things ticking over. 250 quid here, 250 quid there. Coming. One house, 1 month I listed 10 houses. So, that was, like I said, enough to then have to pay the photographer and whatnot. But I was very fortunate that my wife was in a good job. So we had her salary, and that's where I think I hadn't, and again, it kind of leans on an earlier question. I think I decided now was the right time because years ago, if I look back 3-4 years ago, when me and my wife were on the money we would have done, it would have been completely the wrong time to do it because now knowing what I know, if it wasn't for her, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I put a lot of stuff on credit cards. I had several credit cards I already had access to. I know I'm not encouraging people to get into debt, and it's not, I'm not here as a fan, but sometimes you got to spend money to make money. And I just thought, if I'm going to do this, and you've
got to take a risk.
It had to
find
work.
The money.
And the thing is, I built up. So between the December, and I think by the time the completion started coming through in the June, I think I had something like £150,000 pipeline. So I was just looking at it going, it's there, it's going to come through at some point. So I literally was just doing cash transfers off my credit card, just to get me through. And then between like the June and the August, I think it was something like £70,000 worth of completions in the space of just 3 months. And it was just and that's where it was right, pay that credit card off, started. So I think that, that's something people have got to think about. But I was spending a lot of money because I was paying for photographers and videographers and getting them to create content. So probably not the wisest thing to do on the budget that I had, but it kind of pushed me forward to think it has to work, and it was just, I wasn't, there was no other option. There was no plan B. It was, this just has to work. I have to do this. This is what I've always wanted to do. No one's going to do it for me. And that comes back to what you're saying about, agents, getting their hands dirty and getting stuck in, is that, no one else is going to do the work. And I knew that. So I just thought I've got to do this. And I had to pick myself in those dark times. And I did burn out towards November. That's coming back to your original question, was that I've realized that I couldn't do this forever. I was like, I cannot carry on like this. The early mornings, the late nights, and doing all the viewings and all of that. I just can't. It's getting too much and working every weekend. So my mum, bless her, when I went to Miami, she was very kind to do some viewings for me. She'd done them for actually an agency in the past that I got her a job with. So she kind of, she enjoys it. So she kind of looked after things while I was away. And then when I was away doing that, and she was kind of back home looking after things, it did make me realize actually how much more relaxed I felt, knowing that someone was ringing the inquiries and was doing the feedback and was, So it did make me think, actually, yeah, I need to try and find some kind of autonomous way and being that one agent to, if I was dealing with just like 5 clients at a time and charging 3%, it would be manageable. But I suppose, I'm still charging 1.5%, and not the highest fees in the world, but they're still good fees. And, average fees probably about 5.5 grand. So it's like, well, and obviously on some bigger ones, they're considerably higher again. But, for me, I thought, well, actually, I want to try and make sure that I'm that go-to agent in my area, and I want to go for gold, and I want to become that brand that everyone comes to, but I can't do it on my own.
And Alex, let me ask a question there. In terms of the properties you're trying to attract and being the go-to agent, as you've just said, are you trying to carve out like a particular niche for the properties that you sell, or are you trying to dominate a patch and sell everything in it? Have you got like a plan? That
I was going to say, when I started, I had a plan, but then I think it just basically turned into a year flying by the seat of my pants a bit. Really, it was just, I've tried to really focus in on, because when I started, I would, like as I mentioned, I was selling homes towards Chepstow, and I was driving within an hour of where I lived, because when I thought I'm the new kid on the block in Abergavenny, which is where I wanted to really draw the business in, and that's what's happened now over the last kind of year or so. I'm organically now getting asked out to stuff in my town. So now I'm at a position where actually I'm not really picking much up in those other areas, which is fine. I do get the occasional one where someone says, we'd like you to come and look at our house. And I think, fine, if it's the right client, right house, I'll go and see it. I've actually turned some down respectfully. There was a little 2-bedroom terrace up in Merthyr someone reached out to me about, and it would have been about 100 grand. And I just said to look, I could do it, but we'd be looking at a minimum fee of 4 grand. And they just said, the other agent round us said they'll do it for 1%. And I was just like, look, with respect, I just said, look, I'm probably not the right agent for you. I'm happy to take the job on. I can sell the house, but I said for what I do and like I said, for what I charge, I still feel you'll get extremely good value. But they just said that's probably. And so I'm in that process now of transitioning to where I'm dealing more within my hometown, which was always the goal. Which I'm glad I've kind of got to that point now where organically I'm not having to prospect much as I was in the early days and sending letters and door knocking and doing all the things we do to try and get through doors. I'm now being invited into doors. And it's gone from being that, I've become that kind of more of an attraction agent, which is obviously always the dream, is to kind of be in a position where people are asking you. Naturally, that's come obviously with the fact that I'm getting asked out to a lot that maybe aren't thinking about moving. They're just curious to what the price might be. And like, in the early days, I wasn't missing having those appointments, because I still would go if people help. But obviously in the early days, I wasn't getting asked out to that because I wasn't the go-to agent. I was just the specialist, the one that people wanted to come to if the house wasn't selling. That was very much that. Whereas now when people are saying, hey, we're thinking about moving in the next 6 to 12 months, would you come out? And I'll still go. I'll still have a conversation with them. So that's why I think I'm starting to struggle a bit with, like I said, because I've done like 20-something valuations in January on my own, which is, quite a lot for me, whereas I was used to maybe doing only 4 or 5 valuations in a month. So,
and what does your hometown? What is your hometown?
So Abergavenny is my kind of hometown in Monmouthshire.
And what's the average? Like what sort of prices are you? What's the average kind of house price?
Average house price about 320,000 is in the area of kind of Monmouthshire.
Okay.
That's kind of the average. I mean, again, there's such a diverse range. You've got multi-million-pound places, and again, 10 minutes up the road, you can buy a 2-bedroom terrace for 150,000. So, so there's quite a diverse area that kind of in the immediate surroundings that which I enjoy. I do like, but again, in terms of kind of working down to a niche, I suppose that middle to upper market, and like I said, obviously having sold a big property, I've been trying to, I guess, get into more doors of the bigger ones unsuccessfly. And I know you guys will probably say, well, that's why you should come to one of our sessions, and we'll help you get to doors. But that's true. It's the point that I'm trying to find ways to get through. But like I said, it's just waiting for that little breakout moment and being persistent. And I'm going back to see someone now that I spoke to back in October, and they said, we're going to give it to the end of November. We'll give it to the end of December. And we give it to the end of January, and now I've just said to them, look, are we going to meet up again or what? Am I going to take the house on a what? Come on, it's another 3 months now, and it's still sat on the price that it's on with no they haven't had any joy, and that's that'll be over 1.5 million. So I'm hoping that I'm catching up with him tomorrow. So I'm hoping now that then we can talk about taking that on. So I think, like David said, being persistent, or one of you was saying about, you've got to be persistent and keeping in touch with people, and you've got to make sure that it's planting those seeds. And I've got to remember that I am still literally only like 15 months into the business. I've got to remind myself of that, and my wife reminds me. I kick myself, and she's like, "You've only been going just over a year." She said, "You've only had your first sale a year ago, or just like 11 months ago. So don't kick yourself as much." And I do beat myself up about stuff, and I think if I'm in this in the long run. In time, those people will come back. And I have had lots of ones, like you said, that have gone with other people. Like you said, 6 months has passed and they've had 2 viewings and they're sick to death of their agent. And it's like, hi, I'm here now. I'm ready and waiting. But yeah, I think the other thing is obviously now managing what I've got. And like I said, obviously going back to the question in regards to how I'm changing the business, I've just taken on a virtual assistant. As I've just been in the process of training her at the moment. So she's taken on a lot of the admin. So that's already starting to, obviously it's taken a bit of time to get her into the flow of doing things, but getting instruction and just now being able to send it to someone to send the paperwork out, it's bliss, because I'm now not thinking I'm going to be sat up at 10 o'clock at night trying to send a set of terms of business out. So I think, getting her working the database a little bit more, because again, I'm all open and honest. My database isn't as organised as I'd like it to be, because I just haven't had the time to sit there and go through it and ring people. And so again, that's something I know I need to be doing more of. So she's helping manage that side of things, and just taking away off some of the background lifting, so I can go out and see more people and not be worried that I've got to catch up with clients and everything else in between. So.
Can I ask you a question, Alex, on the VA side of things? Yeah. Is that a UK VA or is that like an overseas VA?
Overseas.
Because I looked into overseas VAs before. My worry was, because obviously we concentrate on mid to high end here. My worry with overseas VAs, and my experience of, of dealing with people that have got overseas VAs, is that sometimes they're not as, if you get a client that calls in for evaluation, it goes to your VA, and they say, "Oh, do you know Acacia Street?" And they'll go,
yeah.
And you then lose that where, don't get me wrong, and it could be always the way that, if you haven't got the right seats on the bus, so to speak, that could happen even if they're English or not. But my worry is sometimes I do feel there's a lot of promotion for kind of overseas VAs at the moment, in different countries like the Philippines, and there's a couple of South African ones as well. And, I'm sure they're very good at doing certain things. My worry is sometimes that, the destruction that could be done, but with people them calling in, them not being familiar.
Yeah. Well, I think that, in terms of, I guess, what I'm using it for, it's very a background. It's not the first point of contact, whether people have called through, because obviously with eXp we have Money Penny, so if people ring up as part of the membership, so if people call up through Rightmove, they'll go through the Money Penny, so they just take the name and number and then it's over to me. So, and the same if people are booking appraisals, I'm finding that's coming through like Instagram and Facebook, and people have my mobile numbers on all the boards. So there isn't many instances in terms of what I use my VA for. She's very much, like I said, in the background. So when I've got the instruction, sending out the paperwork, she'll then send all the email links out, and then she'll be chasing them for the information. Same when a sale's agreed, it's over to her. Right? Could you send out the sale agreed letter to the email to the buyer? Can you gather the information? Can you upload them onto the the AML software? So she's kind of taking away those things, and it's like, and then I just want to make sure that, like I said, if she can just ring people through, and to be fair, I guess she's South African, so she speaks really good English. Technically she's calling for, I've got a desktop phone system which rings from a local phone number. So as far as people are concerned, if she rings someone to just find out, and like I said, the people she's speaking to are more buyers who saying, are you still in the market to buy? Can I just update details? Can I just confirm your budget? Right, okay, I'm going to match you against a few properties, thank you very much. So it's not but she'll still have a conversation with people, and there's probably going to be instances that she hasn't knows things, but I think it's like anything. I think it's how you train them and how you utilize them, because I think that I sent a 20-minute long video of me going round Google going, right, so this is Llanfoist. It's pronounced Llanfoist. This is Abergavenny. So I know it might seem...
To be fair, you'd have to do that for me.
Yeah, well, to be fair, most people buyers coming over from the bridge from Bristol, like, how do you pronounce it? So to be fair, it's no different. So I've made sure that at least if people are ringing, if she's speaking to people and she's suggesting property, she's at least got a... So like I say, but that takes time. But I think, again, for me, and it's not to say that, I'm not employing local people and I don't want that to become a thing. And that, in the long run, that will be the goal, is to have a more localized brand with more local agents, whether they're so self-employed, whatever it is they're doing, or whether I've got a support team. But I guess for me right now, for what I needed and obviously the cost, it just it just felt like that next sensible step to get some help. Because if I didn't get help,
what sort of money does that set you back then? Because I'm just trying to do the sums in my head. Obviously, you're self-employed, self-supported. Obviously, now you've capped. Obviously, you've got a lot of money coming in, which is great. What does something like that cost you?
Well, like, so you could go to the Philippines and they'll do it, for a packet of, cost of a packet of biscuits. It's like, we'll do, we're like, £1 an hour or whatever ridiculous prices I've had people messaging me about. But the one I'm using, it's £1,000 all in a month for 4 hours, 5 days a week.
Yeah. So 4 hours a day.
Yeah, 4 hours a day. So she just does 4 hours a day, and then that's it's up to me to make sure she's got things to do. And interestingly, when we've talked about, again, I don't want to put out what I've got planned as such, but when you've talked about like you guys send out the market update letters. I just haven't had. I've done some, and I've tried to use, but I've just not had the time. But having her to, the goal is to say to her, right, go and get me all the list of addresses off the council tax websites and put them into a big ass spreadsheet for me, please, just so I can start gathering the data in somewhere that we can then start tracking and actually thinking, what are we sending out to, and just kind of using for the stuff like that in the background, and just saying to her, I want you to go off and do this for the day. Go and find me a list of properties that have withdrawn or whatever it may be, which I know I can find myself, but like I said, I've been struggling to find those time when you've got people, like I said, clients who are on the market who need your attention. You've got to remind yourself of that. You don't want to be chasing new business when actually I've got 26 properties on the market that need my help, who've instructed me and given me, they've trusted me with their instructions. I don't want them to feel abandoned because I'm off chasing new, sending out market update letters. But I know I need to do stuff like that, because if I don't do stuff like that, then, like I said, you'll notice and as Tom Panos says, what you do in the next 30 days will affect what happens in the next 90 days. And I always think about that. And I think that, like if I look at this month and how busy I've been with other stuff, I think I haven't really done a lot of other stuff I wanted to do. I had big plans for January to start doing various things, and I haven't done any of it. And I'm like, oh God, I'm just thinking now, that is that going to have a knock-on effect in 3 months' time? So I'm always kind of thinking of that. But like I said, it's just trying to. But I found, like I said, obviously I've had to train her this month, and we're getting there. Obviously, slowly, it's taken time because of different countries. She's been in a state agency before. She was a personal assistant for someone in South Africa, which helps. So she kind of already had an understanding of real estate and everything. But like I said, by the time she's up to speed, I'm hoping, as we said, that then she will be very much just autonomous in the background, just running everything and just making sure everything's kind of ticking along in the background, just to free me up. And I said it's more that I don't look at the £1,000 of cost. I'm trying to look at it as an investment. If it can help me buy back time, where I could actually spend more time sending that on the market letters and actually trying to win more business that's going to net me 10 times that, then happy days. If I could do another 10 grand a month in commission, because I've got someone who's doing those little pound tasks that anybody could do, so not to say that they're boring tasks, but, me sat there.
And they're £10 an hour tasks, aren't they, rather than £100 an hour tasks.
And that came from, so that the biggest way is because we did it when we were in Lisbon for the eXp con there, and then I was lucky enough to be invited to a mastermind in London, which was like kind of top producer, if you will, which was Glenn Sanford and Leo Bergera, which obviously the heads of eXp. And they did a thing, they worked out your hourly rate. I'd never done that. And they said, let's work out what you want to do in production or commission. And now let's say, how many hours do you work a month or week or whatever it is? And we literally dialed it down to how much an hour my hourly rate was. And I was looking actually how much it was worth. I was thinking, there's so many tasks I'm doing that I could easily, somebody else could be doing, where actually I should be out trying to do the big tasks, as in winning business,
going to make the money. Yeah.
Looking after clients, like you said, nurturing them, talking to them, getting them to amend their pricing, all that stuff that I know is so important. Doing video content, stuff that I know is going to attract business, and thought, and again, I've got a sales progressor as well, which I was going to say, I've just got a self-employed sales progressor who works per deal. So if it doesn't complete, I don't. It's basically £250. If it doesn't complete, I don't have to pay them. So I've got that now as well. So that's helping, because again, I was looking at, I can't spend another Friday just sat at my desk trying to get through the solicitors. I can't do it anymore.
No.
I just can't do it. Like, literally, I'm thinking there's people saying, hey, can you come value our house? And, I can't do Friday because I know I've got to sit at my desk and try and ring solicitors.
Try and get this 10 grand deal through.
I'm saying, can I come to you next week? Well, the other agents are coming on Friday. And you're like, oh, God. And then you just felt, I thought, no, just get somebody else to kind of do the legwork with that. I mean, I'm still around dealing with the sales progression when things go wrong. But just someone sending the emails, making those calls to solicitors. Can I have an update? Can I have an update? Ringing the other agents. Can we have an update? Somebody else can.
Yeah, it's one of the first things. It's one of the first things I did, was bring in someone to do sales progression, someone to do viewings, and someone to answer the calls. Because you just want to be out listing and selling and doing the marketing, don't you? So that's what I do anyway.
Exactly.
Alex, JK, have you got anything else to ask Alex? I'm just conscious
that we've got another 2-3 minutes before we need to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a couple of quick direct questions, if that's all right. What would you say? So eXp, self-employed, not eXp, self-employment, is it for everyone?
No. I just think it's an easy answer. Self-employment isn't for everyone. And that's not a bad thing, and like I said, I think there are some people who will go on and make amazing careers in employed roles, and and some people just like being an employed person. They like that kind of feeling of, they know where they are every month with salaries and everything, and that's fine. But I think for those who kind of always feel, is there a little bit more, and have got that kind of dream and aspiration to kind of build their own dream and not build somebody else's. I think it could be, if you've got the right attitude, it could be the best thing you've ever done. And it's changed my life. I mean, honestly, I know it's cliche and I'm not going to sit here and go, eXp changed my life, but generally it has, because
I think it has though, mate. Listening to everything that you've said.
Yeah.
And I think what you've done is, and I think, obviously credit to the model that is eXp, but I think they've obviously given you that avenue to list and sell your properties. But then what you've done is kind of bolt on everything that you want, if that makes sense. So you've bolted on sales progression, you've bolted on a VA, you've bolted on other parts there, and it's obviously it's kind of your baby, and it's whether I think long term, looking from the outside in, it's whether you stick with that and you build. Because I know you guys can get your own brand and be powered by it now. Whether that's something that you then do, or whether you go, I think credit. I think credit to you, mate. I think a lot of it boils down to you and your attitude. And I think whether the name was eXp or ABC or 123 above the door, I think given the platform that you've been given, I think you'd be a success either way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and I think that's a great way to round it back off again. I think it doesn't matter what model, and there are people out there that we know they jump from model to model to model. And then blame the model for the fact that I'm not selling enough houses. It's the model's fault. I didn't get enough support. And they said, but it's your business. You can't blame the model for the fact that nobody's calling you because your marketing's terrible. That's something you can fix. You can't expect your model to. And some might provide the tools. And that's the thing. It gave me a business in a box, and that was the beauty of it. It literally said, "Here's everything you need. Everything you need is there. You just got to use it and find it." And I in the very early days, I just looked for stuff. If I wanted to know something, I went on Workplace and just typed in, and there was a whole list of agents and American stuff that were doing marketing strategies. I thought, right, I'll take a bit of that, I'll take a bit of this. It was all there. But I think some people don't look for it, and they kind of just expect people to do it for them. So I think it isn't for everybody. But if you're willing to put the hard work in, it will be the best thing. It'll be one of the hardest things you've ever done, but my God, it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life, and I'm glad I did it. Now, looking back, yes, it was hard, but being able to do the things I'm doing and the things I've got planned, and seeing it change my life financially and all of that, absolute game changer. So yeah.
Mate, I think it's been amazing. I think you've really put yourself across well, and I think it's been great to clear some things up as well with different parts of the model and whether it's right. And so just before we leave, so I'll ask you two more questions, one positive and maybe one slightly more negative. What's good about self-employment?
I think, like I said, that coming back to really knowing that you're building your own dream, and I think actually security, because when we look at what the market's doing, and talks of lots of agents selling up and selling to big corporates and being bought out and all this, I feel more secure. I was very secure in the company I was with before, but I've got that security that I can't make myself redundant. This is my baby. I get to decide. I get to wake up every day and decide what I do. I've woken up some days and thought, do you know what? I can't be asked to do absolutely anything today. I'm going to stay here. I'm just going to stay, sat around, and I'll spend some time with the wife this morning watching a film. Sod it.
Yeah.
And not having to think, I've got to go in, and it's like having that balance. And I know it's about work-life balance, and there is an element of work-life balance that is worse because you're working more hours. But even though I'm working longer, I kind of feel better.
Flexible though, isn't it? It's flexibility and freedom, isn't it? If you put more in, you'll get more out. But then equally, it's totally up to you and in your hands.
Well, most mornings now, between 9 and 10, walking the dog, other people are just starting their days. They're in their office and they're having to have their team meetings and being shouted at because they haven't booked enough financial services appointments this week. I don't have any of that. We've all been there, and it's just great to actually, like I said, I'm out building something of my own. And
then, so I don't like, perhaps should have asked this the other way around because I don't like to end on a negative, but what's bad about self-employment? We kind of half touched on it earlier.
What's bad, I would say, is, like I say, it can be a bit lonely sometimes. I think that's the thing when you are on your own. Even though I've got lots of people I can reach out to, it's going from working in an environment where you've got always people around you and lots of noise and there's lots of activity happening to suddenly nothing. And you kind of sat there. And it's like, but like I said, at the same time, you've got to remember you can reach out to people. And that's been the beauty, again, I think, of, just to lean on eXp. I've got my sponsor and obviously got Adam Day. And there's so many people and other agents that, people go on about, with the eXp and it's all about downlines and uplines. There's people that I'm not even in any ties with, but I've become good friends with them. Like Adam Mackay, as you guys know Adam. Me and Adam have become like the best of buds. And it's just we just click, and the model's allowed us to spend time together, and we're on the same wavelength about stuff, and so it's actually just like remembering that there are people you can reach out to. But I think that being self-employed can feel a bit lonely at times, but you just got to remember that there are people out there that would be more than welcome to give you a hand, give you advice, and tell you this is what I did, and we've all been there. I think that's the thing. You kind of feel it's only you, but the chances are, even though other people look successful and it looks amazing and they're obviously flying, but they've probably been through similar things as well. So it's just actually reaching out to people and asking for help. So, that could be one of the drawbacks.
Yeah, excellent. Mate, you've been absolutely amazing guest. Yeah. Absolute superstar. So really appreciate your time. Thanks for taking an hour out of your day for us.
No, I'm honoured to actually be on the cast. So, thank you very much for having me here.
No, pleasure. Thanks. Anything else, Ian, before we call it a day?
No, that was great, mate. I think you're very good. So well done, and here's to the future. So congratulations.
No, thank you very much, guys. All the best.
Well, thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.